Hello viewers, Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. This is MD Saiful Islam and assistant teacher of Kono Jadur High School, Rhino Nogan, and you are most welcome in my Saiful English Academy. Dear learners, the students who are very weak in English, who think English as art subject today, who can't do spelling any words accurately, who can pronounce any words accurately, who can change the narration from direct to indirect, who can change words from active to passive, who are unable to form check question, who are unable to select what categories of sentence, what categories of parts of speech, what categories of syllables. After all, who have various kinds of problem in English grammar. Dear learners, after all, there are some students who are unable to learn English for their financial problem. Going in a renowned coaching center for their financial problem. Dear learners, only those students, I want to dedicate my video classes. Of course, you know that, my dear learners. With this view, various kinds of video classes have been uploaded in my YouTube channels, already, my dear learners. Of course, you know that, my dear learners. With the reference of my previous classes, today's class have been present in front of you with a new arrangement, a new class named Voice of Interrogative Sentence. Voice of interrogative sentence, one kinds of brands of changing sentence, one kinds of brands of changing sentence. Okay, my dear learners, my dear learners, take no time, you take a look at the board and try to understand, but my dear learners, before starting today's class, I want to ask some question to you. My first question to you, my dear learners, what's an interrogative sentence? What's an interrogative sentence? I hope that, my dear learners, you will be able to reply my questions, because various kinds of discussion matter about various kinds of sentences already have been uploaded in my YouTube channels. Hope that you will be able to reply my questions, but I want to add something here in the midst of the answers of you, my dear learners. We can say the chart, my dear learners, that try to make you understand about the definition of an interrogative sentence. You are told, my dear learners, that we can say or we can remember in this way. An interrogative sentence is the sentence which asks any question to anybody about anything. So, my dear learners, of that you have understood clearly. Thank you very much. Now, my second question to you, my dear learners, how many ways can we select an interrogative sentence? An interrogative sentence. Of that you will be able to reply my questions, but I want to add something here, my dear learners. We can say that, my dear learners, you were told in my previous classes, we can classify, we can select an interrogative sentence on two ways, only two ways. Number one, starting word to be verb, and number two, starting word WH question, and finally ended with the notes of question mark. Okay, my dear learners, we can classify, we can select an interrogative sentence in two ways. Number one, starting word to be verb and finally ended with the notes of question mark. Number two, starting word WH question and finally ended with the notes of question mark. I hope that you have understood clearly. My dear learners, today's class I am trying to make you understand these kinds of rules of voice of interrogative sentence. So, my dear learners, take no time, take a look at the board and try to understand. Rule 1. If any interrogative sentence is started with any kind of to be verb, you will have to follow the following structure at the time of converting any active voice into passive voice. Okay, my dear learners, you are told that, my dear learners, if an interrogative sentence is started with any kinds of to be verb, you will have to follow the following structure at the time of conver, ching an active voice into passive voice. Now, I am trying to write the shortly structure. I am trying to write the shortly structure, my dear learners. So, take a look at the board and try to understand whatever the things I want to make you understand and try to note instantly, my dear learners. At first, I will have to write down to be verb. To be verb. According to tense and person. According to tense and person. At first, we'll have to write down to be verb. According to tense and person. Okay, my dear learners. Now, number two, we'll have to write down objective form of subject. Objective form of subject from the statement. From the statement. Okay, my dear learners. Number three, being, being, being. Number four, V3 form of verb. Number five, non direct object. Direct object if possessed. If possessed. Then we'll have to write down preposition by. Next, subjective form of object. Subjective form of object. Then extension if possessed. Finally, we'll have to indent such categories of statement with the notes of question mark. The notes of question mark. Of that you have understood clearly, my dear learners. Listen to them. You were told, my dear learners, if an interrogative sentence started with any kind of to be verb, any kind of to be verb, we'll have to follow the structure. We'll have to follow the structure according to tense and person. Okay, my dear learners, I have written a shortly form of structure at the time of converting any voice from active to passive if an interrogative sentence is started with to be verb. I have written, take a look at the board, my dear learners. At first, we'll have to write down to be verb according to tense and person. Number two, objective form of subject. Objective form of subject. Number three, sometimes according to tense, we'll have to use be, been, being. Be, been, being. Next, number four, V3 form of verb. V3 form of verb. Number five, direct object if possessed. Direct object if possessed. Then preposition by. Preposition by. Subjective form of object. Subjective form of object. Objective form of subject. Then extension if possessed. Finally, the notes of question mark. The notes of question mark. Okay, my dear learners, try to note and try to memorize instructive, my dear learners, because now we'll have to change or convert voice from active to passive according to this role or structure. Okay, my dear learners, now, my dear learners, I am trying to show you some example to remove the complexity about this structure. Okay, my dear learners, so take a look at the board and try to understand. Example. Do you learn English well? Number two, does mother make tea daily? Okay, my dear learners, take a look at the board and try to understand. First sentence I have written starting with do. Second, does. Can you gauge, my dear learners, what categories of tense is this two examples? I'm sure that, my dear learners, you will be able to develop my question, but I want to add something. And mind it, my dear learners, if any interrogative sentence is started with do oblique does, do oblique does. Of course, present indefinite tense. Present indefinite tense. And in present indefinite tense, we'll have to use to be verb. Three categories of to be verb: am, is, are. at the time of converting voice from active to passive. Okay, my dear learners, look at the board and try to understand. You told, my dear learners, if any sentence is started do oblique does, to be verb do oblique does, mind that such category of sentence of course present in infinite tense, infinite tense, and at the time of converting an voice from active to passive, you will have to mind that, my dear learners, three categories of to be verb is used. Am is are according to person. Hope that you have understood clearly. Now, my dear learners, I am trying to write down the structure pattern. At first, you'll have to use to be verb according to tense and person. Okay, my dear learners, it depends all the time objective form of subject. This is possessed object English. So, the key of English you'll have to use is. Okay, my dear learners, is English. Okay, my dear learners, of course, you know that my dear learners, from my previous classes, at the case of present indefinite tense and first indefinite tense, be, been, being is not used. Be, been, being is not used. So, my dear learners, will have to write down V3 form of verb. Here, verb learned. V3 form of verb learned, of course, learned. Then preposition by. Preposition by. Then subjective form of object. Here, object you. And objective form of you, of course, you. Okay, my dear learners, finally we'll have to write down extension. Here extension oil, finally ended with the notes of question mark. Hope that you have understood clearly. Okay, my dear learners, now I'm trying to solving second example. We'll have to write down to be verbs. Am, is, are according to object. Here object is. So in this case, we should write down is. Then objective form of subject che. V3 form of verb made. Next preposition by. Subjective form of object. Here subject mother, and objective form of mother is of course mother. Extension daily. Finally ended with the notes of question mark. Okay, my dear learners, number 10. Number 10. Did we play football yesterday? Yesterday. Okay, my dear learners, but I'm now my question to my dear learners, can you gauge what categories of tense if any sentence is started with it? I hope that you will be able to reply my questions, but I want to add something. My dear learners, mind that if an is interrogative sentence started did, to be verb did, of course, first indefinite tense, first indefinite tense, and in first indefinite tense, at the time of converting voice from active to passive, we'll have to two categories of to be verb named watch oblique or. Okay, my dear learners, now try to think what categories of verb will have to use at the case of football. Of course, was, because you are told various kinds of usage of was oblique or. You are told that, my dear learners, if subject single number, we will have to use was, and if subject refers to plural number, we will have to use where, and at the case of subject you all the time where. Okay, my dear learners, thank you very much. So write down was objective form of subject. Here object football, football. Next V3 form of verb played. Next preposition by. Next objective form of subject. Objective form of subject. Okay, my dear learners, here subject we, and objective form of subject we, of course, us. Okay, my dear learners, then extension. Here extension yesterday. Yesterday. Finally ended with the notes of question mark. With the notes of question mark. Okay, my dear learners, hope that you have understood clearly. So write down example number 4. Have you have you finished your homework? work. Number 5, had, mother, cooked, right. Number 6, will them have played cricket? My dear learners, my dear learners, underline have, had, will. Will have. Okay, my dear learners, can you gauge what categories of tense is this three example? My dear learners, try to write, my dear learners. You told various kinds of selection or of various kinds of tenses, my dear learners, in my previous classes. My dear learners, write down have, had, had, shall have, oblique, will have, plus V3. Of course, in these three cases, you'll have to use will, the learners. So, the learners, try to note instantly. You'll have to gauge what categories of tense. If an sentence started with have, oblique, has. Can you gauge, my dear learners? I'm sure and hope that you will be able to reply my questions. But I want to add something. Mind that, my dear learners, and try to note instantly this time. If any sentence is started have oblique has plus V3, of course present indefinite tense. Present perfect tense. And if any sentence possessed had plus V3, of course first in perfect tense. And if any sentence shall have oblique will have plus V3, of course future future perfect tense. And in this case of three, in these three cases, you will have to use been. You will have to use been. We'll have to use been. Okay, Netherlands. Of that you have understood clearly. Now try to solve this three example. Netherlands. Number 4. Have you finished your homework? We'll have to use to be verb have oblique has. Which is correct? Of course. Thank you. Has. Then objective form of subject. Objective form of subject. My dear learners, here object homework. Home. Sorry. Your homework. Your home work. But in this three perfect tense, we'll have to use been, my dear learners. Use been. Okay, my dear learners, of that you have understood clearly. Been. Then V3 form of verb. Finished. 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 Next preposition by. Then objective form of subject. Objective form of subject. So write down you. Extension if possessed. Finally ended with the notes of question mark. Okay, the learners of that you have understood clearly. Next example. Had mother cooked rice. Here object right. So in this case you will have to use had rice. Then we'll have to use been according to structure. Then V3 form of verb. Here verb V3 form of verb cooked. Next preposition by. Objective form of subject. Here subject mother and objective form of mother, of course mother. Okay, my dear learners. Finally ended with the notes of question mark. Okay, my dear learners. Next example. Can you gauge what categories of tense is this statement? I'm sure, my dear learners, you will be able to reply my question. But I want to add something. If an sentence possessed to will have plus V3, of course, future perfect tense, my dear learners. So write down according to the structures to be verb, will, next, subjective form of subject, objective form of subject, subjective form of object. My dear learners, here object cricket and subjective form of cricket, of course, cricket. Okay, my dear learners. Then have been V3 form of verb, flight. Next preposition by. Objective form of subject, objective form of subject. Here subject they, and objective form of subject they, of course them. Okay, my dear learners, Hope that you have understood clearly. And finally, ended with the notes of question mark. Question mark. Example number 7. Example number 7. Can Rohim make tea? Can Rohim make tea? Can you gauge, my dear learners, can, what categories of to be verb can? What categories of to be verb can? I hope that my dear learners you'll be able to reply my questions. But I want to add something here. Of course, you know that because there are various kinds of discussion about this. Of course, you know that my dear learners, there are 13 categories of modal auxiliary. Modal auxiliary. Modal auxiliary verb. But there are 13 categories of modal auxiliary verb, and at the case of such kinds of 13 categories of modal auxiliary verb, we'll have to use be. We'll have to use be. Okay, my dear learners, of that you must not clearly. But mind that, my dear learners, if an interrogative sentence is started with any kinds of modal auxiliary, there is no any change of modal auxiliary, and you'll have to write such kinds of modal auxiliary direct. Okay, my dear learners, so write down can. Then objective form of subjective form of object. Subjective form of object. Here object chi, and subjective form of chi, of course chi. Dear learners, then in this case, at this case, we'll have to use be. So write down be. Next, V3 form of verb made, then preposition by, then objective form of subject. Objective form of subject. Here subject Rohim, and objective form of subject Rohim, of course Rohim. Of course, you know that, my dear learners. Extension is possessed. Finally ended with the notes of question mark. Okay, my dear learners, hope that you have understood clearly. Example number 8. Are you reading English now? Next, 9. Where they playing hockey? Number 10. Will mother be cooking? Right. Okay, my dear learners, underlined, my dear learners, are, where, will be. Okay, my dear learners, can you gauge what categories of tense is this example? I know that, my dear learners, you'll be able to reply my questions, but I want to add something here. Write down, my dear learners, in your characters, am, is, are, was, where, shall be, oblique, will be, plus verb ing equal to being. Okay, my dear learners, try to listen to me well and try to understand what categories of tense is this 3 example, my dear learners. Of course, you were discussed, you were told in my previous classes, my dear learners, you were told that, my dear learners, if any sentence possessed am is or verb ing present in the continuous tense, am is or plus verb ing. Am is or plus verb ing, of course, present continuous tense. And if any sentence possessed was or verb ing, first continuous tense. Continuous tense, and if any sentence possessed shall be, will be, verb ing, of course future continuous tense. And at the case of continuous tense, we will have to use being. Okay, my dear learners, of course I may review only for you one thing. So, my dear learners, be attentive and listen to me. What are the things I want to know and make you understand, sir? Though I discuss such categories of discussion matter in my previous classes, but only for your betterment today's class, I am trying to review again. If an sentence possessed ami jar plus verb ing present continuous tense. If an sentence possessed ami jar plus verb ing present continuous tense. Was jar plus verb ing first continuous tense. Shall be, will be plus verb ing. Shall be, will be plus verb ing. Of course, future continuous tense. And at the case of all continuous tense, at the case of all continuous tense, you'll have to use being. You'll have to use being. Hope that you have understood clearly. My dear learners, now try to solve yourselves. At first, we'll have to use to be verb here. According to subjective form of object. Here object English, and at the case of English, we'll have to use is. Okay, my dear learners, because you were told at the time of my previous classes at the use of amateur, you were told that, my dear learners, about the using of amateur. You were told that, my dear learners, in my previous classes, try to remember and try to recall. If subject singular number, of course, is if subject plural number, of course, use are, and at the case of subject I, we'll have to use them. Of course, you know that, my dear learners. So write down. Then between being, here in this case you'll have to use being. Okay, my dear learners, next v3 here verb read, and v3 form of verb read, of course, read. Then preposition by. Next, objective form of subject here, subject of course you, and objective form of subject you, of course you. My dear learners, extension is project here, extension now. Finally, ended with the notes of question mark. Of course, hope that you have understood clearly. My dear learners, next example. This sentence is started with a where, but can you gauge what categories of tense? Of course, I know that my dear learners will be able to reply my questions because you are told in my previous classes, and at this moment, a few minutes ago, I was trying to make you understand. So you were told that, my dear learners, if any sentence is started was or where plus verb ing, of course, first continuous tense, and at the time of voice changing roles from active to passive, we'll have to use being. Okay, my dear learners, being. So try to solve yourself. At first, to be verb. In this case, you'll have to use was or were. Was. Why? Because at the time of make you understand about the using of was or you were told that, my dear learners, if subject singular number, of course, we'll have to use was, and if subject plural number, we'll have to use were. Only at the case of you will have to use were. Object you have understood clearly. Then object hockey. Then being v3 form of verb. Next preposition by. Subjective form of object, objective form of subject here, subject there, and objective form of subject there, of course, then. Okay, my dear learners, finally question mark. Okay, my dear learners, now next example, try to note. At first, to be verb will, subjective form of object, here object rise. Next being v3 form of verb cooked, preposition by, then objective form of subject here, subject mother, and objective form of mother, of course, mother. Finally ended with the notes of question mark. Okay, my dear learners, of that you have understood clearly. My dear learners, at the time of writing the structured such categories of sentence today's class, my dear learners, I have written one structure pattern, direct object. So now at this moment I'm trying to show you at the case of direct object, did running show me a picture. Okay, my dear learners, take a look at the board and try to understand this sentence possessed direct object. Of course, you know that, my dear learners, if any sentence possessed a double object, first object we can call indirect object or personal object. We can call indirect object or personal object, and second object is called, of course, direct object. Okay, my dear learners, how that you have understood clearly. Now, try to solve yourself, my dear learners. At first, write down according to the structures pattern to be verb. This sentence is, of course, first elevated tense, and according to the rules of hygienic rules, so of course, you'll have to use was where. At the case of me, so subjective form of object me, of course, I. So we'll have to use was. I. Okay, my dear learners, but at the case of present indefinite tense and first indefinite tense, we should not use given being. So we'll have to write down V3 form of verb. Here verb show, and V3 form of verb show, of course, short. Okay, then direct object or non-personal object. We can call this non-personal object too. Okay, my dear learners, so write down direct object picture. Then preposition by objective form of subject, here subject, of course, Rani, and objective form of subject, Rani, of course, Rani. Finally ended with the notes of question mark. Of course, I know that of course you have understood clearly, my dear learners. In rule number 1, I'm trying to make you understand if an interrogative sentence is started with any kinds of to be verb. Of course, you know that the another name of to be verb, of course, auxiliary verb or helping verb. So, my dear learners, try to understand whatever the things I want to make you understand. At the time of converting voice from active to passive, if an interrogative sentence is started with any kinds of to be verb or auxiliary, we'll have to follow the structures. Of that, you have understood clearly. Of that, now I'm trying to make you understand about starting word any double question. Any double question, my dear learners. Of course, you know that what's a double question. Of course, you know that I hope that you will be able to define the questions, but I want to share something here, my dear learners. There are some words which form with WH, WH, and you can't be hopeful to get an answers with yes or no. If you ask anybody with such kinds of words at the time of making questions. Okay, my dear learners, of that you have understood clearly. My dear learners, in the rule number 1, I want to make you understand if an interrogative sentence is started with why, when, where, how, what. Why, how, where, how, what. Why, when, where, how, what. You'll have to follow the flying structure at the time of converting any active voice into passive voice. So, my dear learners, take a look at the board and try to understand. So, now I'm writing the short form of structure. Structure. At first, you will have to write down such kinds of double question: why, when, where, how, what. Okay, my dear learners. Number 2, next, to be verb according to tense and person. According to tense and person. Okay, my dear learners. Then objective form of subject. Objective form of subject from the statement. Then we'll have to use be, been, being, next, V3, next, preposition by, next, objective form of subject, next, extension if possessed. Finally, you will have to finish this categories of face voice into the notes of question mark. The notes of question mark. So, my dear learners, take a look at the board and try to understand and try to note instructly the structures. My dear learners, I am speaking to you, my dear learners, especially in rule number 2. I am trying to show you what categories of structure will we have to employ or use at the time of making any voice from active to passive if an interrogative sentence is started why, when, where, how, what. Okay, my dear learners. So for the structure, my dear learners, the structure is in the way. At first, we will have to use such kinds of WH question. Here, we may write down WH question. WH question. Number two, you will have to use to be verb. To be verb. Number three, objective form of subject. Objective form of subject. Next, be, been, being used. Be, been, being used to if possessed according to friends. Then, little form of verb, third form of verb. Next, preposition by, preposition by, preposition by. Then, subjective form of object, objective form of subject, objective form of subject, then extension F suggest, extension F suggest, and finally ended with the notes of question mark. Okay, my dear learners, update you have understood clearly my structure. Okay, my dear learners, now I'm trying to show you some example to remove all weakness about this rule. So, my dear learners, write down the example. Why are you learning English oil? Okay, my dear learners, number one. Number two, when do you learn English? Number three, where do you learn English? Number four, how do you learn English? Okay, my dear learners, and number five, what do what do you learn? What do you learn? Okay, my dear learners, take a look at the board and try to understand whatever the things I want to make you understand. Let's start, my dear learners. At first, you'll have to use why, when, where, how, and what. So, my dear learners, write down why, when, where, how, what. Okay, my dear learners. Next, we'll have to use should be verb according to tense and person. According to tense and person. Example number one. Take a look at the board and try to understand what category of tense possesses this. Number one, example number two, of course, present continuous tense because this sentence possessed am is there plus verb ing. Of course, how that you have understood clearly, my dear learners. In this sketch, this sentence possessed object English. So we will have to use each. Next, objective form, subjective form of object, objective form of subject. Okay, my dear learners, then of course you know that my dear learners, at the case of offer continuous tense we'll have to use being, we'll have to use being. So write down being. Okay, my dear learners, being. Next, v3 here verb learn, and v3 form of verb learn, of course lunch. Then preposition by, then objective form of subject, objective form of subject, here subject you, and objective form of subject you, of course you, extension here oil. Okay, my dear learners, finally we'll have to use the notes of question mark, the notes of question mark. Hope that you have understood clearly. Number two, my dear learners, at first we'll have to use WS question, given WS question when. Then number two, according to tense and person, we have to use to be verb. This sentence, of course, present infinite tense, sir, my dear learners. And from my previous class, of course, you know that what categories of to be verb we have to use at the time of changing voice from active to passive of present indefinite tense. Of course, you know that, my dear learners. So we'll have to use, in this case, use is. Then subjective form of object, subjective form of object, here object English, and subjective form of English is, of course, English, English. Then given being is used. So my dear learners, it's a remarkable thing that, my dear learners, at the key of present indefinite tense and past indefinite tense being is absent. Of course, you know that, madam. So you'll have to at this moment you'll have to use repeated form of verbs. Learn, learned. Then preposition by. Next, objective form of subject. Here object you and object you. Okay, my dear learners, finally we'll have to use the notes of question mark. Okay, my dear learners, object you have understood clearly. Now think about example number 3. This example is started the WS question where. Okay, my dear learners, so okay, my dear learners, now I'm trying to show you rule number 3. In rule number 3, we are told that, my dear learners, if an interrogative sentence is started which WS question which subject which subject hold. Then you have to follow the structure at the time of converting any active voice into passive voice. Okay, my dear learners, the structure try to note instantly. At first, we'll have to use which oblique hose, plus next word of which oblique hose, next word of which oblique hose, next to be verb according to tense and person, to be verb according to tense and person. Then we'll have to use be will be according to tense. Next v3 form of verb, v3 form of verb. Next preposition by. Next objective form of subject, then extension if project of the statement of the given statement, and finally ended with the notes of question mark. Okay, my dear learners, so look at the board and try to understand, sir. I have written 2 examples, my dear learners. First example, which friend do you like most? Which friend do you like most? So my dear learners, take a look at the board and try to understand, sir, and try to solve yourself. According to the structure, we'll have to use which at first. So write down which. Okay, my dear learners. Then next word of which oblique host. Yeah, next word fan. Number 3, to be verb according to tense and person. Of course, you know that, my dear learners. Which fan do you like most? Present indefinite tense. Present indefinite tense. Because in the previous classes, you told selection of various kinds of options. They told that, my dear learners, if any sentence for this job does, of course, present indefinite tense. And according to rules of voice and rules of present indefinite tense, 3 categories of to verb work at the time of converting any voice active to passive. So in this case, we'll have to use is. Then we'll have to use be will being. Of course, you know that, my dear learners. At the time of converting any voice from active to passive, especially present indefinite tense and past indefinite tense, be will being is absent, not used. You should not use be will being used. Okay, my dear learners. So then, VT form of verb here, verb like, and VT form of verb like liked. Then preposition by. Then objective form of subject here subject you, and objective form of subject you, of course, you. Okay, my dear learners, then extension here, extension must, finally indeed with the notes of question mark, okay, my dear learners, of that you have understood clearly. Next example, whose car do you like most? Whose car do you like most? So try to solve yourself according to structures pattern. At first, you'll have to use your whose according to the structure. Then you will have to use next word of whose. Here, next word car. Okay, my dear learners, then you'll have to use to be verb according to tense and person. In this case, of course, this statement is possessed of present indefinite tense, and according to the rules of voice changing rules from active to passive, the categories of to be verb work image are. In this case, we'll have to use is. Okay, my dear learners, then within form of verb here, verb like, and within form of verb like, of course, like. Then preposition by. Then objective form of subject here, objective form of subject, of course, you, my dear learners. Finally ended with the notes of question mark. Number 3, which person did you love most in your life? Okay, my dear learners, example number 3, my dear learners, I have written which person did you love most in your life. So try to solve yourself, my dear learners. First we'll have to use which Then next word of which here next word person to be verb according to tense and person. Look at the board and try to understand what categories of tense possessed in this statement. Of course, you know that, my dear learners. If any sentence possessed did, of course, first indefinite tense and according to the changing words of voice from active to passive. Only two categories of to be verb words like what, oblique, where. But in this case, we'll have to use what? Okay, my dear learners, then begin being is used. Of course, you know that, my dear learners, at the time of converting any voice from active to passive, especially present indefinite tense and present indefinite tense and past indefinite tense, we should not use begin being. So, this function is absent here. Okay, my dear learners, then we'll have to use V3 form of verb. Here, V3 form of verb, legs, loved. Next, preposition by. Then objective form of subject you. Extension must in your life. How that you have understood clearly, my dear learner. In the rule number 4, I'm trying to show you if an interrogative sentence is started with who. With who. Okay, my dear learners, then you'll have to follow the structure. You'll have to follow the structure. Main precondition of rule number 4 is that, my dear learners, if an interrogative sentence is started with who, the best question, how, then we'll have to follow the structure. So, my dear learners, take a look at the board and try to understand and try to note instantly. At first, we'll have to use by home instead of who, instead of who. Then to be verb, to be verb according to tense and person, according to tense and person. Next we'll have to use subjective form of object, subjective form of object from the statement. Then we will have to use be, been, being. Okay, dear learners, then we'll have to use V3 form of verb. V3 form of verb. V3 form of verb. Next, we'll have to use extension. Then, finally, we'll have to end it with the notes of question mark. The notes of question mark. Hope that you have understood clearly. So, dear learners, take a look at the board and try to memorize instantly. Word structure, dear learners, if an interrogative sentence is started with the who at the time of converting any voice from active to passive, at first we'll have to use by home instead of who. Okay, dear learners, next, to be verb according to tense and person. To be verb according to tense and person. Next, subjective form of object. Subjective form of object. Okay, dear learners, then be when being is used. According to tense, sometimes, but not all time. Next, V3 form of verb, third form of verb from the statement. Next, extension, if possessed of the statement, and finally ended notes of question mark. Now I am trying to show you some example. Who loves a liar? Who loves a liar? Next example. Who broke the plate yesterday? Number 3, who is teaching you? Sorry. Now, okay, my dear learners, so take a look at the board and try to understand and try to not instantly whatever the things I want to make you understand. Now try to solve yourselves according to the structures. Example number 1, who. At first we'll have to use by home, by home. Next, to be verb according to tense and person. This sentence of course present in indefinite tense. So in this case, you'll have to use each. Next, or subjective form of object. Here, object are liar and subjective form of object a liar, of course liar. Okay, my dear learners. Then begin being here not used. V3 form of verb here verb love, and V3 form of verb of course loved. Okay, my dear learners. Biome is a liar loved. Extension a possessed, and finally ended with the notes of question mark. Next example, how that you have understood clearly. Next example, my dear learners, we'll have to use by home instead of home. Okay, the learners. Then, according to tense and person, we'll have to use to be verb. This sentence, of course, first infinite tense, and according to the rules of voice changing rules, to be verb was where work at the cage of first perfect tense at the time of converting any voice from active to passive. So, my dear learners, in this case, we'll have to use was. Then, subjective form of object. Here, object the flat, the flat. Next, V3 form of verb. What V3 form of verb? Broke or broken. Because you know that V1 form break, V3 form of verb broke, and V3 form of verb broken. Break, broke, broken. Break, broke, broken. Next, extension if for this. Here extension is ch J. Finally ended with the notes of question mark. Hope that you have understood clearly. Now try to solve yourselves example number 3. At first you'll have to use by whom. Okay, middle learners, take a look at the board and try to understand. This example, of course, present continuous tense because this sentence possessed am is plus verb ing. Okay, middle learners. So in this case, we'll have to use according to subjective form of object are. By whom are you given being. What's topics I will have to use here? Of course, being because you had told that, my dear learners, in my previous classes, at the case you offer for the continuous tense, we'll have to use being. Okay, my dear learners, so we'll have to use here being. Next, V3 form of verb teach, taught. Okay, my dear learners. Next, extension if possessed. Okay, my dear learners. Now, hope that you have understood clearly. So, my dear learners, already we have finished rule number 4. Rule number 4. Now, I am trying to show you what the structures pattern. Rule number 5. Rule number 5. In rule number 5, I am trying to make you understand if any interrogative sentence is started at home. If any interrogative sentence is started with home. So, in this case, we'll have to use this structure. What's main precondition of this rule, my dear learners? So take a look at the board and try to understand. You are being told in this case, my dear learners, if an interrogative sentence is started with home, you'll have to follow the structure. You'll have to follow the structure. So, my dear learners, take a look at the board and try to understand and try to note instantly. We'll have to use who. Next, to be verb, to be verb, to be verb. Next, next we'll have to use be, been, being. Next, V3 form of verb. Okay, my dear learners. Then preposition by. Objective form of subject, then extension if possessed, finally ended with the notes of question mark. Okay, my dear learners, so take a look at the board and try to understand and try to note instantly the structure pattern. Okay, my dear learners, of that you have understood clearly. Now I am trying to show you some example about this structure, so try to note instantly. Home, do you like most in your life? Okay, my dear learners, so try to solve yourself. At first, we'll have to use who instead of home. Okay, my dear learners. Then you'll have to use to be verb according to tense and person. This sentence, of course, is a present indefinite tense, and according to the voice changing rules of voice from active to passive, we'll have to use any ger, anyone. Okay, my dear learners. According to subjective form of object. Okay, my dear learners. This sentence possessed, of course, present indefinite tense, and in this case, we'll have to use is. Then we'll have to use begin being. Sorry, in this case we should not use begin being. Next V3 form of verb. Here verb like, and V3 form of verb like, of course, liked. Okay, dear learners. Then preposition by, objective form of subject. Here subject you, and objective form of subjective, of course, you. Okay, dear learners. Then extension must in your life. Okay, my dear learners, next example. Whom did Rohim love most? Okay, my dear learners, take a look at the board and try to understand, and try to solve yourself according to the structure. At first, we'll have to use who instead of whom. Okay, my dear learners, so write down who. Then, according to tense and person to be verb, in this case, we'll have to use was required. Was. Okay, my dear learners, begin being. Sorry, in this case, we should not use begin being. Okay, because my dear learners, in my previous classes, you are taught for the reason not to use begin being. Okay, my dear learners, then V3 form of verb. Here verb love, and V3 form of verb, of course, loved. Okay, my dear learners, next preposition by. Then objective form of subject. Here subject Rohim, and objective form of subject Rohim, of course, Rohim, and extension must. Okay, my dear learners, hope that you have understood clearly. My dear learners, of course, you know that there are 9 categories of WS question. 9 categories of WS question, and already we have finished various kinds of rules of WS question and to be heard. And in my previous classes, you have told that, my dear learners, we can classify an interrogative sentence into two ways. Number one, starting word to be verb and finally ended with a notes of question mark, and number two, starting word WS question and finally ended with a notes of question mark. Already within 5 rules: rule number one, rule number two, rule number three, rule number four, and rule number five. I am trying to make you understand various kinds of structure of converting an interrogative sentence into active to passive. Don't know sure I have made you understand surely or not, my dear learners, but I have tried to make you understand heart and soul. So, my dear learners, today's class, I don't want to learn them, my dear learners, but before finishing my today's class, I want to share something here, my dear learners. Of course, you know that, my dear learners, I'm a new teacher or new teacher in YouTube channels, and at the time of making various kinds of English classes, I am trying to use your English conversation with Hindi conversation, and of course, you know that, my dear learners, to error is human, and I am not out of this concept, my dear learners. So at first, my dear learners, I want to apologize to you, my dear learners. If you notice any faults or mistakes in the midst of my video classes, please excuse me and pray to Allah for me, so that I can serve you in this way through my video classes throughout my life, my dear learners. Next class, in my next class, I am trying to make you understand another sentence, rules of voyage, another sentence, perhaps a voyage of imperative sentence. Okay, my dear learners, in my next class, I'm trying to make my video classes with the rules of voice of imperative sentence. Already you know that, my dear learners, I have finished voice of assertive sentence and voice of interrogative sentence, and in my next class, I am trying to make you understand about the various kinds of rules of interrogative sentence. So, my dear learners, no more today. Come to see again with a new advertisement, a new class only for you. So, pray to Allah for me so that I can build or make or create a new video class only for you, better class. And please like, share more and more if you feel oil. So, my dear learners, no more today. Come to say again. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.